Great moments are born from great opportunity. And that's what you have here tonight, boys.
I'm talking about we're beaten.
We're not beaten.
I'm not beaten. We're in this game. Anybody here tired?
No.
Sonny,
Not tired.
Holt,
I'm just warming up, Sheriff.
Connor,
I'm ready, John.
Bertie, you with us?
Yep.
Good. Because the Rangers are starting to breathe through their mouths. The strides are getting shorter. Do not give these guys too much respect. They didn't pull a dog sled, did they?
No.
Didn't skate the river, did they?
No.
This is our pond.
Now Cameron Hughes gets the ran over the line. Clean pass for Morrison across. The shot, they score! Ryan Winterton and the Firebirds take the lead. 6:08 to go in the first period. Logan Morrison right up the tape for Winterton. And Coachella Valley out in front for the first time in the series.
You know they just want you to bleed, right? I'm here to do whatever they need me to do. You know, if they need me to bleed, then I'll bleed for my team.
Let's go. Pretty boy. Let's go.
Introduce yourself.
Jim. My name's also Jim.
Problem solved.
Thanks, James.
Now, as far as serving the tendy goes, if they're shooting, you're getting your body in front of it. Everybody blocking shots. All you useless guys, blocking shots, bugging Appledorns. Now everybody knows the role. Eh, Sanguinet?
Everyone knows the role. Everyone does their job.
Yeah, so.
For Parsonen, McCormick tries to jam it loose in front, comes to Del Gaizo, pass broken up, John Hayden coming in shorthanded, looking for the hat trick, Hayden's in, he scores! John Hayden, a shorthanded goal, the hat trick for Haynes, 1:57 left in the second period, and it's 5-1 Coachella Valley.
I want to win that championship tonight, but I want to win it clean. Old-time hockey. Like when I got started, you know? Jeez, Toe Blake, Dick Clapper, Eddie Shore, those guys were the greats.
Reg is our coach.
Yeah, sure, old-time hockey. Like Eddie Shore.
Yeah. Coach, our line starts.
Sure.
You were born to be hockey players. Every one of you. And you were meant to be here tonight. This is your time.
Greetings, friends and Firebirds fans, and welcome to the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Fire and Ice, the official podcast of your Coachella Valley Firebirds, two-time defending Western Conference champions of the American Hockey League. Coming to you from Palm Desert, California, a mere Jagger Furcus red whisker away from the Birds' home ice of Acrisure Arena, I'm your host, Judd Spicer, along with this bi-monthly endeavor across the duration of the Birds' third season of play. Also, again, have the privilege, and the pleasure of serving as your Firebirds Insider. Those Firebirds Insider articles may be found online, as with all things Birds, at cvfirebirds.com. That's your hockey home and hub for everything, including, but certainly not limited to, tickets, merchandise, roster, community information. Again, get it all online at cvfirebirds.com. Per the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort, also right here in sunny Palm Desert, California. That's your home of the Mountain View and Fire Cliff courses, respectively. Awesome 36 holes of play. Actually, going to be headed over to DW myself later this week for the Media Mishap Round 2025. I think that's on the Firecliff, the recently renovated Firecliff, I might add, just about 3+ miles away from Acrisure Arena. Make it a great putt-to-puck day. Tee it up over at Desert Willow and then skate it over to Acrisure Arena. I love that. I love a good segue. Golf and hockey all on the same day right here in sunny Palm Desert. Oh, and when you're poking around at desertwillow.com, also be certain to check out the excellent and on-site Palm Desert Golf Academy, home to all your swing, club, and tutelage needs. Got a great facility right there on property to get your swing study on. Not alone on this episode of the Fire and Ice podcast. Enthused to be joined here shortly. The return of the guru himself. Patrick Williams covers the American Hockey League as the features writer for AHL.com. Also extends his talents to NHL.com. You can additionally find his work over at Flow Hockey. He's an active guy. Heck, I cover one team. He covers all 32. Looking forward to revisiting with Patrick here shortly. Going to talk goings-on in the AHL, some of his thoughts on the Firebirds season to date, and, of course, the upcoming AHL All-Star Classic. Yeah, we're on the TikTok to the Palm Desert play February 2 and 3. That is Sunday, Monday. That's the wraparound coming up this weekend, the AHL All-Star Classic. If you don't have your tickets yet, you can get those as well. Individual tickets now on sale at cvfirebirds.com. Yeah, a lot of those tickets have now been scooped up, but certainly still some available for purchase. It's going to be a blast of a double dip of days, starting with the AHL Skills Challenge on Sunday the 2nd, and then followed by the All-Star Classic on Monday the 3rd. Going to dig into that more specifically with Patrick here in a few moments. In the interim, let us get to this episode's Firebirds Freeze Frame segment. 42 games in the books, 30 games to play. Birds record of 21, 15, 1, and 5. Puts them in third place currently in the Pacific Division. Not a terrible place to be by any stretch, although our expectations are high. Got our group of young studs, got our group of return veterans, got our 2 banners hanging aloft in Acrisure Arena. Birds looking for that all-star break. That's the assessment of yours truly. We're on the heels of 3 straight losses and a lot more parity, friends, in the Pacific Division, I think, than we've seen in the 2 years previous. I mean, heck, again, we're in third place, but a mere 6 points separating second place currently in the Pacific Division and 6th place. Again, that's just a mere 6 points between 2nd and 6th. Ask Coach Derek Laxdal about this in the post-game presser after the Birds' 3-2 loss to Bakersfield this Sunday past. Just wondering if he charts this, if he keeps close tabs, keeps close watch on the daily grind of the Pacific Division. I mean, heck, one good week you can slide up 3 spots, one bad week, the inverse can happen. He said absolutely. He looks at these division games not just as 2-point opportunities, but as 4-point games. That's the kind of swings that we're looking at right now. So when you have a tough week like the Birds have experienced, you can slide down a little bit. But fear not, hope is on the horizon, and I'm going to tell you why here shortly. Per the schedule, this Wednesday, January 29th, home game, 7 p.m. puck drop versus Abbotsford. Abbotsford coming in here on a real heater. No let-up for the Birds. They've played a lot of good teams lately, had a lot of travel. They're going to play a hot team in Abbotsford, who's coming to the desert on an 8-game win streak. Birds then hit the road for a Texas 2-step, going to play the Texas Stars this Friday, January 31st, and then Saturday at the onset of February, Saturday, February 1. Both of those games are 5 p.m. puck drops. That's Pacific time. Texas, another pretty darn good team. After that, we segue to the aforementioned AHL All-Star Classic on Sunday and Monday, the 2nd and 3rd. And here's where we're going to get a little ease. A lot of games, as mentioned, for CV of late. We've got some guys that are banged up, as all teams do. But let's face it, our captain, Max McCormick, he is the soul of this team. 19 games only this season. He's been out since January 11th. We're going to need Max back. Undisclosed injury, but hopefully this time off since the basically onset of January, followed by this All-Star break, is going to give Max time to heal. We need him back in the Birds lineup. Per that aforementioned rest, after the All-Star break, 3 consecutive days off for the Birds. Then February 7th, Friday, February 7th, get to play last place San Diego. That is on the road. Boys then get 4 more days off before a road trip to Henderson. They are in second to last in the Pacific Division. Then get 2 more days off before coming home to face San Diego on February 15th. Then it's a quick wraparound, quick turnaround to face Bakersfield. Now we owe Bakersfield after that 3-2 loss this last Sunday. Bakersfield on Sunday the 16th. So a little rest for the Birds, a little lighter schedule. I think that's going to see them turn it around, the streak of late, again, coming off of 3 straight losses. Per the team and leading scorers, yeah, they had a bit of a drought, or more than a bit of a drought. Birds went almost 130 minutes without a goal, going from the latter half of their game versus San Jose last Wednesday. Then suffered a 3-0 shutout on the road at the hands of a pretty solid Ontario Reign team. Took us a couple periods to find something in the net. Compliments of Jagger Firkus to break that scoreless drought against Bakersfield. All that to offer that the boys, haven't been putting the puck in the net a lot of late. All that to further offer and concurrently offer that CV has no scorers in the top 60 in the American Hockey League. Ben Myers, he is your Firebirds scoring leader to date, 27 points on the season, 11 goals coupled with 16 assists for Ben. 20-year-old Yanni Newman availing himself quite well with 25 points. He has 16 goals, matched with 19 assists. Those 16 goals for Yanni tied for 15th in the entire American Hockey League. Young Leighton Road, White Bear Lake's own, he's just 22 years old. 24 points thus far in the year for Leighton, as does Logan Morrison. He also have 25 points. Ryan Winterton, right behind those boys, 23 points thus far in the year. Brandon Byro, also with 23 points, 5 goals, matched with 18 assists. That 18 assists is tied for a team high with defenseman Max Lajoie. Per those minding the net for the Firebirds, Alistejka, now 8-12-4 on the year. Goals against an even 3 flat with a save percentage of .902. And the desert remains cuckoo for Coco, also 20-year-old Finn, just like Yanni Newman, his buddy. Nikkei Coco now 12-3-1 on the year. Goals against stellar, 2.49, save percentage of .909. Those former 2 metrics, the wins and the goals against, those are both tops among American Hockey League rookie goalies, while that save percentage is second among AHL rookie netminders. Can also add that those 12 wins are good for tie for 8th in the entire AHL. Young Nikkei Coco having an outstanding season for the Birds. All right, Firebirds friends, all those stats, numbers, impressions, scheduling offered. Let's get to this episode's visit with Patrick Williams, features writer for AHL.com. All right, Firebirds flock. As prefaced, our guest, or I should say our return guest, so enthused to have him back. He covers the American Hockey League for the AHL.com. You can also find his work at NHL.com. He does so as well for Flow Hockey. The American Hockey League is his oeuvre. We welcome back Patrick Williams to the Fire and Ice podcast. Hello, Patrick.
Hello. I'm not sure what oeuvre means exactly, but it sounds good, so I'll go with it.
It's all in the positive. Yeah, want to build you up. And sometimes on Fire and Ice, You got to get the thesaurus out. That's all right. We got a sharp audience out there. Before we delve into your return visit, we've enjoyed having you out here in June for the Calder Cup Finals, but you will be out in February this year for the upcoming All-Star Classic, February 2 and 3 at Acrisure Arena. We'll get into that momentarily, but let's get underway with this, man. A little big, broad arc and the state of the league. Most teams have reached the 40-game threshold. Some are even a few beyond that. Firebirds have played 42 specifically. Going with the East first, we got some great stories, some familiar faces atop those divisions to be sure, but then you got a team like Laval, the aptly named Rocket, going from worst to first thus far of the year, rocketing up the standings. What are you seeing thus far in the East, Patrick?
Yeah, so, let's start in the Atlantic, kind of work our way east-west. Hershey, obviously a team that Coachella fans are very familiar with from the past two Calder Cup finals. Well, Hershey's up to their usual tricks, right? Up top the entire conference. Actually, it's been funny. Like they've been absolutely excellent on the road this year, like playing over 800 hockey. It's been home ice. That's kind of been their real challenge for them. They're kind of right hovering around 500. So it's interesting because this is a team like the Firebirds that went to back-to-back finals, and then Hershey opened up this year 5 games and 8 nights to open the season, right? So they were, I think, the first team to hit the mid-season point in the East, and so they played a lot of hockey, right? Like head coach Todd Nelson was talking about that earlier. That the off season's really short, and then you go right into things, and they never really got a chance to kind of get things where he wanted them until probably honestly January, just in terms of practice time, conditioning, everything like that. So schedule definitely eased up on them this month, and they've used it to their advantage. They're on a 17 point streak now, so fairly comfortably in that top spot in the Atlantic. Then, like you mentioned, Laval. Kind of a different team from Hershey in the sense of it's heavy on the prospects. A real young team. Pascal Vincent, former coach of the year with Manitoba, took over in Laval. So kind of brought a whole new energy to that group. He was in Columbus last year as the head coach. So that was a big acquisition for them. And then, the usual suspects, like Providence, Charlotte, Wilkes-Barre's kind of resurgent this year. They were pretty active in the offseason, bringing in some good veterans. So they've been pretty solid, right almost from the start. Even though they get a steady dose of the Hershey Bears on their schedule, they've been really good. So Rochester, Cleveland, a lot like the last couple of years. Those are the teams that Hershey faced in the Eastern Conference Finals. Toronto, a team that's one of the rare teams from the East to go out to the Pacific Division in the regular season this year. They're actually out right now in Bakersfield, San Jose, and San Diego. So a chance for them to kind of get a little variety on their schedule. So that's what kind of the look of the Eastern Conference.
Talking about the Western Conference, segueing over here again, a lot of familiar faces, a lot of the usual suspects. Do have to reference the Texas Stars with their two former Firebirds, Cameron Hughes and Cole Lind. That team just scoring a boatload of goals and riding a heater right now. They're in second place in the Central.
Yeah, I think for me, they're probably maybe the wild card of that division because when they're on, they're really on. Right now, they're in a good groove, 8-2 in their last 10. Like you said, they could score bunches. I've got two real playoff tested players like Lind and Hughes, and that Central Division's kind of that top three there. Grand Rapids, Texas, Milwaukee, kind of the usual suspects the last number of years. Not a whole lot different this year. Chicago's an interesting team, right? Like they're back with Carolina. They were independent last year for 1 year. Really young team. They had some definite growing pains early on, but they started to find their way a little bit. So then, we go out to the Pacific, right? Calgary, once again, really good. Even though Dustin Wolf is no longer there, they brought in Devin Coley, and he's been out a little bit lately, but certainly kind of stepped right in there and just really good there. San Jose's resurgent. Obviously, your Firebirds are a team that went, probably, the most off-season change of any team really in the league. But brought in a great coach in Derek Laxdal. They've not missed too many beats. So, it's, in some ways it's different, but, a lot of the usual suspects are kind of back in contention this year, just once again.
Yeah, just to again briefly reference the Central, Birds were happy to contribute to Chicago's growing pains recently during
Yes.
their double dip visit. And the aforementioned scheduled portion of this episode did reference our Texas two-step coming up. 2 games against Texas on the road for the Birds, January 31 upcoming, and then right back at it on February 1st. That's Saturday night, back to back in Texas. Calgary, they've basically done it all season long, man. As you mentioned, some different personnel. They've had other guys step up, especially Rory Cairns comes to mind. He scored a lot of goals this year.
Yes. Yep.
Let's
Yeah, it's an
please go ahead.
interesting group because like Trent Hall, the head coach here, actually moved up to the big team on an interim basis. As an assistant. So Joe Sorella, the assistant for the Wranglers now, is the interim head coach for the Wranglers. So they haven't missed a beat. So it's I think it really speaks well to their their player leadership and just kind of the system that they have in there that they've been able to really keep going, even though you have that mid-season coaching change.
Yeah, a couple things more Pacific or Firebird centric, if I may, Patrick. Um, as I referenced earlier in the show, I mean, we're seeing more parity. Calgary obviously having a stellar season, 58 points right now, is best in the entire AHL. But the point differential between second place Ontario and sixth place, or rather seventh place Tucson, that's a mere 10 points. And the difference between second and sixth Abbotsford, who will be here, is just 4 points right now. And Abbotsford coming in here on a 8-game win streak. So it just feels like this year, the Birds, I don't want to say they haven't gotten a break, but it just feels like there have been a lot fewer nights where we are playing poorer teams. And that's not to rip on those teams, but it just kind of feels like night in, night out, they got a tough test.
They do. And, it's obviously a team that's taking on a younger look this year. Now you have 4 Seattle draft classes in there. So you've had that evolution toward a more prospect-oriented team as some of those younger guys take on bigger roles. Some of the better guys moved on. And, you look at a team like Coachella too, right? Like, just you mentioned they play Texas this weekend. Like, that's an out of division game, right? Like some teams in the Pacific don't really have that element in their schedule. Coachella does, and that's a tough challenge, right? Like when you get a team like Texas on your schedule that other teams in your division don't have to face. You're really seeing some of the league's best, right? So I think ultimately that's a good thing for Coachella, but certainly in terms of it does make your job a little bit harder in terms of trying to accumulate points. At this midpoint of the year.
Yeah, and Birds are doing well. Mentioned the record
Yeah.
earlier, 21, 15, 1, and 5. That 5 on the suffix there, a little bit of a sore spot, lead the league in shootout losses. And Derek Laxdal's referred to that element of hockey as a skills competition. I couldn't agree with him more. Nonetheless, you don't want to see that 5 spot. We're not in February yet. But do you feel like seeing this from afar, and you'll see it closer when you're out here in Palm Desert for the All-Star Classic, that we're experiencing some of the realities of life in the AHL now?
You are. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a team that had more of a honeymoon and more of an extended honeymoon than the Firebirds did. I mean, kind of everything fell perfectly. No small part due to the work that they put in and like the accomplishments. In terms of building a good roster, but your first 2 years in the league, you go to back-to-back finals. I mean, and first year, I mean, you came within a goal. I mean, let's be honest, that's at that point that's a toss-up. And last year, maybe if you a little bit less injury bug, and you could have knocked Hershey off. So I mean, that's the way it goes. But that is not your typical introduction to the league. To go to back-to-back finals and have just 2 really memorable seasons, memorable rosters, some real personalities in terms of your players. To have a head coach like Dan Bylsma that comes in as a guy who's already won a Stanley Cup. Only one other coach ever had been a coach of the year in the NHL before coming back to the AHL. So you don't get too many situations in this league where everything kind of just came together perfectly, right? So yeah, this is a little bit more of a typical AHL team, a little bit more of a typical fan experience. But this team is still quite comfortably in a playoff spot. Barring some sort of second half, real downfall, they should be comfortably in. And then who knows? I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing with the playoffs, especially the Pacific, there where two through seven have to go into that best of three, right? Like that's, I think, the scary part. Where you lose one game and you're already facing elimination, right? So that's the challenge. I think just get to the playoffs and then take it from there. And I think they should comfortably be in a playoff spot come April.
I feel like the word develop or the word development we've heard more this year than even close around Acrisure Arena the past 2 years. And it's our appreciation and it's our understanding that that's very much the point of the American Hockey League, to develop players for the big boy club. I wonder if your experience, like that sweet spot, can we develop players and accomplish that aim and win a bunch of games at the same time? Like, do you see a lot of the AHL franchises that are able to find that double dip? They're able to find that exact sweet spot.
Some are. You look at like Hershey's been an example of that. Grand Rapids for a long time. Milwaukee for a long time. Again, and Milwaukee's another team that Firebirds fans are familiar with from back-to-back meetings in the conference finals. You look at a team like Providence, a little bit of kind of a different way of building, but every year you see a few guys go up from Providence up to Boston. So there are teams that have figured out a formula, and it is a real fine line, right? And there's always kind of that existing tension between trying to win, which is what your fans want, right? Like, let's be honest, most of your fans don't show up for development; they show up for winning hockey games, or development's great, but like fans will take a winning team over development every time, right? Conversely, you have the NHL team that's the front office. They want those prospects developing. Ideally, you're doing that within a winning environment. That's not always the case. So yeah, it is a little bit of a kind of a can be a difficult balance to strike, especially like you plan you plan your roster, you plan your team in the summer, and then come November, December, a lot of those plans are already kind of shot because you get injuries, you get call-ups, you get all kinds of issues that come your way. That's where the good teams are able to kind of adjust on the fly. Teams that struggle are the ones that really can't make that in-season adjustment. And that's all part of the deal. And then the other part is just you have 32 teams in this league. It's hard to win a championship every year, right? Like you need a lot of things to go right. You need, like you looked at that 23 playoff run for the Firebirds. I mean, it could have ended really quickly. Had a few different things gone different in that first that little mini round. So yeah, it's a tough run. I think like you said, it's your first couple years weren't your most typical experiences for an AHL team, but this year I think Firebirds fans are getting a little bit more of a traditional look, and maybe it gives you sort of a better appreciation too for what you had those first couple of years.
I know that you keep close tabs on the rookies and the prospects in the American Hockey League. Again, Firebird centric. I think we've had 9 rookies play this year. Most, if not all of whom at some stage or another have availed themselves quite well. But we got a couple of 20-year-old Finns on our roster in the way of Yanni Newman and goaltender Nike Koko. I think both have exceeded expectations. Yanni Newman, he's the leading goal scorer among rookies. And Nike Coco, the aforementioned record early in the show of 12-3-1, again, at just 20 years old. You keep keeping tabs, hearing any things about these two guys in particular?
Yeah, I've been impressed by Coco. Like, you think like, I mean, first year goalies in this league, it can be a rough go of things. Like, um, even guys that come in with some real pedigree and real hope, it can go off track very easily. Especially a guy like Coco coming over from European game, much different game, much different style. Has to come in and just not only to this level, but just to just a kind of different brand of hockey altogether. So I think, yeah, like I think if you're the Firebirds, if you're Seattle management, you have to be very happy with what you're seeing there. Especially too, right? Like he's a young goalie coming in, right? Like he's not coming in with the roster that they had, last year or the year before that, where you had a lot of veteran help that could kind of pull you through some of those early growing pains. Like he's having a young team around him, so he's having to kind of, he doesn't have necessarily that cushion, that buffer that's other, you might have had last year, right? So, I think you have to be pretty happy with what you've seen from him so far. I think the big test for any young prospect is that second half. That's where you really can start to see that workload and that grind. Those February, quote unquote dog days of the schedule. Then that March, stretch drive that can test a lot of
Friends,
start to falter. But like so far so good. He's certainly been solid, and certainly gives you reason to think he can build upon that.
Friends, excuse me, I'll jump back in. You're tuning into the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. Patrick Williams, he covers the American Hockey League, all 32 teams, AHL.com, Flow Hockey, NHL.com to find his work. He is my guest. Patrick, look to segue into the upcoming All-Star Classic. Very proud and very enthused to be hosting it here in Palm Desert, California at Acrisure Arena. You've been to this event several times, many times, couple times over the years?
Yeah, several times. I don't quite remember. It's probably in double digits at this point. And I've really seen it grow. Like, I remember it used to kind of be a little smaller event. The way it's taken off, certainly in markets now, like Coachella. It's become a much bigger event for sure.
I trust that many listeners, or at least local listeners, have not seen this event in person. I personally have not seen this event in person. Had a great conversation in recent days with AHL President Scott House and also the CEO of the league. That article, by the way, can be found at cbfirebirds.com. And I really enjoyed some of the things that Scott said about both the skills competition and then the AHL All-Star Classic games on the night following. Let's go with the skills competition. I'll interject a few things that Scott mentioned. We got the 7 events, Patrick. Which one or two really jump out to you as especially cool or exciting for the fans and those in attendance?
I think the fastest skater, it's it's very straightforward, like there's not a whole lot of rules to figure out or anything like that. It's kind of it's one of those ways you really get a sense like you look at Ethan Frank from Hershey, back-to-back years, set record, and faster than anybody actually in the NHL, right? So just to show you, there are guys down at this level, like he's up in the NHL right now, but that have at least some parts of their game are not only NHL caliber, they're elite NHL caliber. So a couple years back in Ontario, it was Martin Ferk hit 109 on the radar gun for hardest shot. That's a guy who's been largely an AHL sniper over the years, but harder than any player in the NHL. So there are guys at this level that have some really high level elite skill sets, at least in certain portions of their game.
It's fascinating that those are your two references because those are the exact two references that I have in the article that I discussed with
Okay.
Scott. And they're great examples. Ethan Frank, I think it was 2 years ago when he had a sub 13 time
Yes.
in
In
that
Laval. Yeah.
fastest skater, and watched that video several times, an almost unthinkable metric to accomplish flying around the ice like that. And to your point, to Scott's point, here he is. Now he's with Washington. I think he's played 8 games and scored 3 goals. So this not just the event, but the opportunity to showcase his skills, not just for American audience, but on TSN in Canada for that audience as well, on live television. It is a stage. It is a stage for these guys at the minor league level, looking to graduate, looking to move up, looking to make a name and an impression. And to me, that really said something. It really spoke to me that these guys aren't just out here. A lot of people come to Palm Desert and Palm Springs, obviously, for vacation. But for this event, these guys aren't coming on vacation. They're coming here with some real purpose.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's not just come out and hang out, and just kind of mess around. Like, yeah, it is a little bit of a chance to get a little bit of exposure. It's always scheduled such that you know, it's either there's been no games in the NHL on the nights, or at least a limited schedule. So it's it's a chance to maybe remind everybody, right? Like, hey, I'm down here and I got something to show, and it's kind of a good way to get yourself a little bit out there. And it's such a fine line, right? We talk about this all the time, like guys in the NHL, AHL, right? Like, obviously you have your high end NHL players where there's a definite jump, but a lot of players, especially your bottom six in the NHL and the AHL, there's not a whole big gap there. And like you said, like your guy like Frank coming in, and he just needed a chance. He goes up to Washington, and he's looked every bit like he can play up there and then some. So a guy that was certainly a scorer down at the AHL levels now, actually doing the same thing at the NHL level.
One other event, perhaps, that you think the fans will really enjoy here in Palm Desert?
I think hardest shot, like Eric, everybody can kind of like, you really get a good set, because like you don't always get to see that, right? Like in game competition, like where a guy can just like tee up a shot there, even the guys with the best shots, like you're not always in a position to really like crank it like some of them can, but like when hockey's really easy when you don't have anybody defending you, right?
Somebody in your way.
In your way. So you get to position yourself, and just get so I think you get a real good sense of just how good these guys are, right? Like it's again, it's like hardest shots pretty straightforward too, like radar gun, right? Like it's just not all that different from baseball, right? Like, okay, that pitcher hit 100 on the radar gun. Well, hockey, that guy, hit 105 or 109, as the case was a few years back with Marty Ferk. So, yeah, it's a fun event, like, and it's really fan friendly. Like, they take the glass down alongside the rink there, and toward the end of the event, the players go over, sign autographs, all that kind of like fan. So there's a lot of good interaction. These players, remember too, like they're not the the big NHL stars, so like they're not, a lot of them aren't like over that kind of like this is still kind of a really big deal for them, right? And so like they get into it as well, and they're very good spirited about it, and players I think have a lot of fun, just like the fans do as well.
Of course, the evening following will bring the All-Star Challenge. A very cool way that it's oriented, I think. Round robin tournament. We've got the league's 4 divisions, 3-on-3 play with 6 10-minute games. And then the 2 teams that evolve from that round robin advance to a 6-minute championship. And what Scott also described for me is that, again, in a not dissimilar vein, Patrick, that these guys, they show up to win this event. I mean, they don't show up to just come and have a skate and a bunch of laughs. Like, they're here to win. And the way I framed that question to him, I'll do the same to you. anybody listening to this has undoubtedly seen some form of all-star exhibition. And, I don't know, the NBA All-Star game, for instance, comes to mind. I mean, it's lame. Not everyone's trying their hardest. There's a bunch of points. There's no defense. We've seen other sports where it's not dissimilar, where it's just kind of a laugh fest. But he said, no, these guys definitely come to compete and they want to win that All-Star challenge.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a little while back. Maybe the best comparable would be like the baseball's all-star game, especially sort of like 10, 15, 20 plus years ago, where like it was pretty intense. I know that it's got a little bit more of that casual all-star mood now, but like it used to be, like there was some real pride and like, hey, we're out here to win. We're not just, like you said, we're not out just here just to kind of mess around. And 2 years ago, especially Laval, fans, that was a great crowd. Like the Laval fan base is, I mean, they're wired all the time. Like they're wired for like a Wednesday night game in November. And so, they were, they really embraced the whole kind of spirit of the event, and the players kind of picked up on that energy and fed off of it. And, it was kind of this real back and forth event. So, and then you also really get to see, like, the cool thing, I think, for fans too, is you get to see some of these players you only heard about, like guys from the East. You'll get to see like players from the Hartford Wolfpack and players, from the Toronto Marlies, teams that, traditionally are just, kind of a name on the schedule. So like, and you get to see some real high end prospects. There's 12 first rounders participating this year that were selected. So, you're going to get some real high quality prospects to see their game and see what they're all about, before they probably eventually go off to the NHL and go on to long careers up there.
Yeah, and that's the part personally I'm looking forward to the most, is seeing these players that we'll never see. This may well be the only opportunity to ever see them, to see those sweaters, to see these different names in our arena. I think the variety and diversity of that is going to be really cool. Patrick, I'm going to wrap up with this one, man. Maybe a funky one to conclude on, but it's worth asking nonetheless. Birds AHL All-Star representative Cale Fleury. Cale's had a great season to date. Look forward to seeing Cale in this upcoming All-Star Classic. We also have a former Firebird that will be returning, not for the first time this season, mind you, but making another return to Acrisure Arena, and 31-year-old Andrew Podorowski. Potsy, at 31, man, leading the league in scoring again. He's got a 4-point edge right now. We undoubtedly miss him, not afraid to admit that. But is this guy like some kind of AHL unicorn?
He's making a good case. So one of the events next week in Coachella will be the AHL Hall of Fame, and you start looking at some of his numbers. Where he's at. He's making a pretty good case for himself. He's only 31, so he's definitely got some hockey left in him. But guy that's put up some big numbers throughout the years, and he had that big injury 2 years ago, the knee injury mid-season. I still kind of marvel at the way he came back there. 4 months from a major knee injury, right? Like, it's unheard of, and stepped in and looked pretty good actually.
Yeah.
And this year, I think the thing I'm noticing with him too is the goal scoring, right? Like he's always been more of a setup guy. But he's kind of getting a chance, 18 and 39, right? Like, you prorate that. That's, he's pushing 35, 40 goals. That's a good year by any measure. And, he's still got it. It's funny. You look at him and you're like, how's he have that endurance, right? Like that wear and tear. He's not a big guy, right? Like, he's, just kind of, but he's smart. He's elusive. He's just got that real instinct, right? Like, that you can't teach. And this year, I mean, that was a heck of a signing by San Jose. Like, they really, you could see that they really wanted to upgrade their team there, and they got one of the biggest fish of all to come in, and so he's he's up to his old tricks again. Everybody he's kind of like gone through almost each of the divisions, right? Like he was in Charlotte, he was in Chicago, he's been in San Diego, now he's Coachella and San Jose. So like every division's kind of gotten a taste of him throughout the years and had to contend with him. And this year is it's funny, like it might be one of his best years of all.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of those points put up against the Firebirds this year. Nonetheless, we're big fans of Potsy still, and we wish him well, just not to do quite as well in his games against CV. We'll look forward to seeing him playing for the Pacific alongside Cale Fleury this weekend, just as we will look forward to welcoming Patrick Williams back to the desert, a February appearance. And of course, if we can shift this thing into fifth gear, Patrick, we'll look forward to welcome you back to the desert in June. Until then, man, we'll see you in person in a few days' time. Always a pleasure chatting with you and picking your brain on the American Hockey League. Thank you so much for your time, and keep up the great work, man.
Thank you, appreciate it. And hey, I won't be surprised if I'm out there again in June. Like it's a good team this year, and hey, if you breaks go their way, you could certainly, maybe we'll get Hershey Coachella Part 3.
Be ready for that out here in Coachella Valley. I can tell you that. Thanks again for your time, Patrick.
My pleasure. Thanks.
All right, Firebirds flock, it's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Fire and Ice podcast presented by Desert Willow Golf Resort. So appreciative of your continued time, your interest, your ears, your support of this endeavor. Remember, check out cvfirebirds.com, not merely for those Firebirds Insider articles, but also for everything Coachella Valley Firebirds, tickets, roster, merchandise, community information. So appreciative for the time of Patrick Williams, this episode's guest. Follow all of Patrick's work at a variety of locales, including AHL.com, Flow Hockey, and also his work on NHL.com. Additional appreciation and gratitude goes to the presenting sponsor of this endeavor, Desert Willow Golf Resort, right here in Palm Desert, California. That's where you're going to find both the Mountain View and Fire Cliff courses, 36 cumulative awesome holes. Get those tee times online at desertwillow.com. I'm here for 3+ miles from the Birds home ice of Acrisure Arena. Make it a great putt-to-puck day. Go tee it up over at DW and then skate down Cook over to Varner for a Firebirds game in the evening. Per that next Firebirds game this Wednesday, January 29, 2025. Birds looking to get back in the W column at home. 7 p.m. puck drop against a good and very hot Abbotsford squad. We will see you over there at the Birds Barn, and then look to additionally see you when Acrisure Arena and the Coachella Valley Firebirds in Palm Desert, California serve as host. The eyes of the AHL upon us. Look forward to seeing you over there for the AHL All-Star Classic. Get your tickets online now, also at cvfirebirds.com. Individual tickets available this upcoming Sunday, February 2, for the AHL All-Star Skills Competition, followed by the AHL All-Star Challenge on Monday, February 3. Again, look forward to seeing you over there. It's going to be very exciting action and activity at Acrisure Arena. Thanks again, everybody, for tuning in. And remember, as always, one valley, one team, rising together.